Well, hello, it's Joanna with Blissful Baby Sleep Coaching, and I am here live today because I'm going to be interviewing Dr. Elise Hamilton of Hamilton Pediatric Chiropractic. And she's going to come in and speak to us today. And she is a wealth of knowledge. And we're going to be really focusing on all the things and all the ways. There she is.
Hello.
Hi, Dr. Elise Hamilton.
Thank you for having me.
Yes. So I was just bragging about you, how you are a wealth of knowledge when it comes to all things pediatric chiropractic. And today what we decided we're going to focus on is we're going to tell you all the areas in which pediatric chiropractic can help you as a parent. We're going to first focus on the newborn phase, which is 0 to 6 months, and all the beautiful things that your newborn can benefit from. And then we're going to talk about 6 months to 5 years of age. Okay.
Yeah.
And if anyone, is here and has questions, obviously feel free to jump in the comments, and I'll be watching those, Dr. Elise, so if we have some questions.
Perfect.
So let's talk first about the newborn phase. So let me just give a point of context how I define newborn phase and make sure that we're in alignment there.
Yep.
So in the world of sleep science, the newborn phase is considered 0 to 6 months. So it's this very long extended phase of rapid growth and development.
Yeah.
And also very choppy, unpredictable, unreliable sleep cycles. And the reason why that is because the two hormones that regulate sleep, melatonin and cortisol, those two hormones are trying to physiologically balance and regulate in order to give longer, more consolidated, more reliable sleep cycles. And so it is normal during the newborn phase to be very supportive to your child and helping them go to sleep and go back to sleep, because in the newborn phase, we really want to be attentive. And it is not necessary to do any sleep training, any formal sleep training between 0 and 6 months of age. Now, how that relates to pediatric care is when I talk to a newborn mom, often we find that there are really important things going on with that newborn that is also inhibiting sleep beyond the typical newborn sleep patterns. Right. And that is where pediatric care, where ultimately I almost become like a portal for referrals out for newborn parents, because they come to me with sleep disturbances. I'm able to assess whether that's normal within a newborn, typical newborn sleep cycle, and what are things that are actually medical conditions or otherwise that are actually contributing to the broken sleep. So I would love you, Dr. Elise, to talk about those things in the newborn phase, 0 to 6 months, where parents seek out your expert support.
Yes. So the top 5, that would be, latching, breastfeeding issues, not being able to transfer enough milk. Then we have reflux, spitting up a lot, which then also goes along with colic, just upset children. Then we have constipation.
Yes.
And of course, our favorite torticollis, or just a preference of looking one side more than the other. And a lot of those will overlap, or they may have one or a few of them at a time. But those are the for my practice.
Yeah, and I would absolutely say that what you just said there was really important, is that oftentimes in this newborn phase, that you will see some of these overlapping. You may recognize that your child is experiencing reflux or silent reflux, and then you're also noticing that they're having a hard time latching. And you might also notice consequently that they're constipated. And so as a caregiver, it becomes really difficult for you to determine, why is my baby uncomfortable? Is my baby uncomfortable because they're constipated? Is my baby uncomfortable because they're having a reflux episode? Or is my baby uncomfortable because they're hungry because my last nursing session wasn't very productive? And it can leave a newborn mom just utterly overwhelmed and confused, because she's trying really hard to target the appropriate attention. If my baby's refluxing, I do this, versus if my baby's constipated, I do that.
Mm-hmm.
So I would love you to talk a little bit more specifically regarding the Torticollis, because I think those are two areas where families might not absolutely think pediatric chiropractic as the first line of defense. So if you could speak to that.
Absolutely. We'll start with the constipation. We should all be having a bowel movement daily, if not a few times a day, right? Every time we eat, then we should have a bowel movement for that meal. Same goes with babies. And sometimes it's common, not normal, to not have a bowel movement for several days. And the pediatrician and medical community say that's okay, but that can't be comfortable. And so for babies coming into my practice, I always recommend that they should have at least one bowel movement a day. And sometimes that is, they're straining, it's harder for them. It's just a lot of work. And babies' digestive systems are the last thing to develop. And so that's, contributed a lot to why they have all that issue. But also, if the nervous system, which is controlling everything in our body, isn't able to function at its best and really give the right signals and the message to the body, we're going to see some sort of incongruency, right? And that shows up a lot in constipation. So a lot of the time when I'm working on their low back and adjust, I usually find that there are some areas that need adjustments in that low back. It's tight. As a pediatric chiropractor, or as a chiropractor, I'm just really looking for areas, the joints that aren't moving, to help them move better through adjustments. And that's how I restored the function of the nervous system. And so the specific area to help with constipation is that low back. So a lot of times after I adjust that low back, we can see a good bowel movement that day. The next day, a lot of babies have easier and more consistent bowel movements after getting adjusted. So that's huge, right? That's
yes,
where
it is.
I'm a lot more comfortable, because if we haven't gone to the bathroom in a day or two, that, how uncomfortable that can be.
Right.
So yeah, that is.
Well, and then also, in terms of like constipation, like when a baby's constipated, they aren't hungry. So then all of a sudden they're uncomfortable. Then they're not eating because they're not hungry. Then we get worried that they're hungry. So it just, it sets off a chain of concern and additional issues. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love the fact that you can get such immediate response from one simple treatment. And in fact, that's one thing I wanted to say that I meant to say right at the top of our conversation, is having individuals understand how incredibly gentle and careful pediatric chiropractic is on babies, toddlers, and children. So maybe could you just talk about what the level of touch is like and what you do as a specially trained pediatric chiropractic, which you guys is a whole separate area of study. So there are not that many pediatric chiropractors that are specialized in this area. And Dr. Elise is one of those highly trained individuals. And I'm going to open my door for my dog, who is like out here letting me know he wants to join the conversation. Come on.
Perfect. So talk about,
sorry. This is life. This is life in the mompreneur environment, right? You have
exactly.
dogs and kids that want your attention. Okay.
Chiropractic for babies is incredibly gentle, very specific. A lot of babies will fall asleep while I'm working on them, or will stay asleep while I'm working on them. I use the amount of pressure that you would use to test the ripeness of a tomato, or if you're pressing on your eyelid, very gentle. And it's nothing like an adult adjustment where you may be twisted or popped like that. So a lot of babies will just lay in a pillow that I have, or on the table, or even I can hold them and adjust them so that everyone's comfortable and moving around. It almost looks like nothing is even happening. That's how gentle it is.
Right. And it's really all about helping the nervous system regulate and balance so that the body can do exactly what it was designed to do without kind of interference, if you will. In yeah,
Exactly.
right.
Yeah.
And these newborns, I mean, they're ready. They are naturally ready to perform because, like I said at the beginning, those first 6 months is just rapid growth and development.
So
Yeah.
fast. And even the first stressful event, is birth. And
Yes.
just the way of how they were developed in utero can really have a big impact on their skeletal system too.
Right. This is so true that the type of birth, that the baby is in a, to understand if your baby is coming out and in alignment and making sure. And that's kind of where that rolls into the torticollis. There's some people that maybe have never even heard of that term. So maybe you could explain what that is and what to be looking for in case you're a mom and you're wondering, wow, what's that? Like,
Yeah, so torticollis is very well known for, having this tilt or even rotation in the head where baby is not able to move away from that or doesn't want to, kind of prefers to be in that posture. And it could be severe, it could be very minimal, it could even impact nursing and sleeping, where you just kind of notice that baby is always hanging out on one side, or very significant where you can see baby never leaves this kind of posture. And so that can be muscular as well as structural, and really getting in to a chiropractor to assess whether it is both muscle and structure, or just one or the other, and really adjusting where it needs to be adjusted. So baby's not going to move in a way that is uncomfortable, right? Because they can't verbalize and say, oh, I'm hurting right here. They're just going to avoid doing what is going to make them uncomfortable. So getting our hands on them and really seeing where it is stuck and not moving so that we can help it move better, is really going to free up that range of motion and give the input to the muscles so then it can relax and do what it needs to. Muscle work is going to be really great with that, as well as PT. So PT and chiropractic is wonderful for these kids who have torticollis. And if we have torticollis, like I already mentioned, breastfeeding can be a difficulty because they don't want to move to the other side, so only nursing on one breast is comfortable, or you can just have to move to the other breast in the same posture, so you can't really actually flip baby over. And then you can also see that plagiocephaly, or that flat head, start to develop because you're not getting enough stress on the entire head, but just on one part, which then has another host of difficulties that come along with it. So
right,
really,
which is the helmet. So are you saying that the torticollis can, so that the flat head syndrome can actually be undiagnosed torticollis that has developed over time?
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, if it's very minimal.
Right. So like you said, torticollis, sometimes when we think of that, we think of an extreme situation where the child is really like this. But what you're saying is it could be that the child is upright, but the child only has a preference to look this way. And if they try to look this way, they kind of have to move their whole body.
Yeah.
And it could be I'm being a little exaggerated, but you want full mobility, so that when they're sleeping, they have the full mobility, and the full mobility so that they can move on to their rolling milestone, where they're going to need all of that upper strength, mobility, and strength to be able to rotate their torso and their legs to move on to their rolling milestone, which is, back to front and then front to back.
Exactly. Yep.
Yes. Yes. So you can see how this would be so helpful. And then obviously with the reflux and the colic, obviously goes hand in hand, right? Reflux is something that happens that is really considered the number one sleep disruptor in babies 0 to 6 months. And so a lot of times when newborns moms call me and they think they have, unfortunately are doomed to a child that has horrible, bad, is just going to be a bad sleeper, as they say. What we find is, in fact, that the child is really experiencing miserable reflux. And then the first stop, obviously, is my recommendation: talk to your pediatrician, talk to a pediatric chiropractic, and help your child get relief from those symptoms, so that then we can actually see what their sleep patterns are. So amazing. So now let's go into 6 months to 5 years, because this was some of this on her list of the things that people come to her for pediatric chiropractic between 6 months and 5 years. Some of them surprised me. So can you walk me through what the I think there were 4 or 5 things.
Yeah. So again, constipation. That is still something that is dealing with in that age group. Ear infections. That is a time where we see a lot of them. So that can be, chiropractic can be very beneficial for those. Night terrors, kind of sleep, but also goes into focus and, being able to focus on different things and productivity during the day. And then another one is just developmental milestones and making sure that we are meeting those along the way.
Right. So let's talk about, let me kind of just piece together the ear infection part. So if you were a parent that has a child that has had a very severe ear infection, you understand how painful and miserable it is for these babies when their ears hurt. And sometimes ear infections don't get diagnosed for several days of the child being in pain. And oftentimes from a pediatrician point of view, obviously they want to put them on, especially if it's a bad ear infection, they're going to want to put them on antibiotics. But what I love is that if you already have an existing relationship with a pediatric chiropractor, you can say, let's go over there and make sure that the structure. So can you talk about what you're looking for? Someone says, geez, my child's really experiencing a bad ear infection or has a series of them. What are you looking for in that situation?
Yeah, so we mostly look at that cervical spine because, your ears and your neck so close in relation. And if things are not moving in the upper cervical spine, that's going to really impact those eustachian tubes, which are usually where the ear infection starts. And just opening that up can help everything drain and help heal that ear infection so it doesn't have all that congestion. Also, a lot of ear infections are viral. So unfortunately, antibiotics won't even help. So if you have a viral infection, this is one of the best ways and a natural way to really help open that up and also prevent for future.
Yes.
There's a lot of kids that come in that have like repeat ear infections and they just don't know why, and then they want to go get tubes, put in your ears, and so this can just be really helpful for that.
Okay, I love that because, if you can avoid doing a surgical procedure to help with ear infections, and really you could have gone the natural way and developing a relationship with the pediatric chiropractic, that is amazing. So let's talk about the night terrors, because that was new to me. So when I think of night terrors, typically night terrors happen before midnight. The way they look is very different than nightmares. So I want to just kind of identify this for our audience so they can understand the difference between a night terror and a nightmare. So a night terror usually happens before midnight, usually happens within the first 4 hours of the child falling asleep. And they wake looking completely terrified. They're screaming. Their eyes are either open or closed. If you go to them, they are not able to be comforted. It can be very terrifying. I've had actually clients be so scared that they ended up in the ER with their child because the night terror was long and extended and very rigorous night terror. And when the problem with night terrors is once they start, they can kind of perpetuate. And so it takes kind of a lot of effort for the parent to be very in tune with the appropriate sleep cycles for the child and to implement some new sleep hygiene around the child's schedule to help get out of that pattern. But what I learned today beyond the sleep science part of what we can do is, guess what? Pediatric chiropractic can now intervene and work alongside the sleep science. So can you talk to us why seeking your assistance with a night terror could be that final thing that really helps them get out of that pattern?
Yeah. So we already mentioned chiropractic is really just helping that nervous system function at its best. And if, again, we're not able to get those messages to the right place, then our body kind of does a emergency. We're going to just do this because that's what we know what is next is best. But let's adjust and get the best message, the priority focus to that area. And so with night terrors, a lot of that is sympathetic nervous system kind of ramping up and just being too much. And so really working with that vagus nerve, polyvagal theory, and really just bringing that person into a more rest and digest mode so that we don't have that sympathetic turned on as much is going to help overall and eliminate those night terrors.
Yes, which, can take a little while.
Yeah.
And one thing I just want to say about the night mirror is where if a child wakes up and they are cognizant and you're able to have a conversation with them and they're able to communicate what's happening with them. Night terrors, usually the child is not comforted by you and is not interacting with you. And so that's why it can feel really scary, because the child is just kind of unreachable.
Right.
And so this is great. So those of you that are experiencing this, please know you can get help almost immediately with calming down your child's nervous system and the vagus nerve. So that's amazing. So let's talk about the developmental milestone. A point of context there. So in the first 20 months of life, children go through 10 developmental milestones. And these 10 milestones all build on each other. So you have to master number 1 and complete it in its entirety before you can go on to 2, 3, 4. And sometimes what can happen is a child will skip a milestone, or a child will do a half of a milestone and then move on to the next one. And that seems like, oh, well, my child's just moving on. But in fact, it's really important that they do full completion of each milestone, because ultimately, if you skip number 2, it's probably going to catch up to you by number 8.
Yep.
And then we got to go back in time and auto correct it. And that actually would happen with my child. I did not know this, because the developmental milestone research is, over the course of the last 20, 30 years, has gotten all the more advanced, and there's more specialized assistance like pediatric chiropractic and physical therapy and occupational therapy that is available to help and make sure children are fully meeting the milestone in completion for each stage. So why don't you talk a little bit more about that, because I find it absolutely fascinating. And if I could just share this from the rooftops, like if I had known this as a young mother when my daughter was under 12 months and was kind of half completing milestones, I didn't find out about any of this until she was 3 and 4 and 5. And really, I could have intervened a lot sooner with getting support like PT, OT, or pediatric care. So I'd love you to spend some time on this topic, because I think it's really important.
Sure. Yeah. So, like you already mentioned, these are incredibly important to kind of build. They're kind of building blocks so that we can reach the next level. And if we skip them, it's really going to hinder them long term. And so starting with kind of crawling, because that's the biggest one, that we notice. And if we have a child who is, army crawling, or what is often known as like a janky leg crawl, where they're not bringing that leg underneath, they're kind of scooting around, or even just scooting on their bottom, that should be a warning sign to saying, okay, this is not normal. It may be common, it's not normal, and we need to address this and figure out, is it structural? Is it a reflex thing that needs to be integrated better? Do we need to have muscle or PT work, or can we help really that nervous system to kind of jumpstart and start integrating a little bit better and allow those muscles to function better? So yeah, like you said, a lot of parents will say, oh man, my baby walked at 9 months, but they skipped the crawling stage. And that's so exciting, because they're just, there must be a fast learner. but that's not not the case. We really want them to hit each milestone, and do that for, you know, a good period of time before they move on, so that they can integrate those and then move on to the next to learn new things. And you can, yeah, see those later on in life. And like you said with your daughter, it was, you had to go back to that one step that didn't integrate very well, and get that milestone down. So even like 3 or 4-year-olds, I will recommend just going around and crawling on the ground. Everyone playing that way so that you can get that cross crawl, because that in your brain is really important for neurons to fire in that way to build more and just for brain health. So
it is very true, and just kind of interesting point so that you guys can really understand like how critically important what we're telling you is, and again, I wish I had known this, so that's why I love to like pass on the wisdom, is that, for example, this crawl that she's talking about, right? So we often see babies doing army crawl, janky crawl, or the butt scoot, and it looks super cute and they're still getting around. Yep. So we kind of think, oh, they're just doing it their own way, right? And they just move on through. Well, in fact, if a child does not learn how to do the appropriate crawl, which is back, forth, and cross body, so, you know, one leg and one, you know, do, right?
Yes.
That is directly related to their ability to do math, and directly related to their ability to learn handwriting. And it's because the cross-body connection, boop, this cross-body, if they have not fully mastered cross-body, it will show up in their ability to memorize math facts, and it will show up in their ability to write across the page from left to right, and to have it be on a straight line. And then it ultimately can affect their reading as well, because they don't know how to go left to right when they're reading or writing. And so they'll skip down to like the second or third sentence. So when this came up with my daughter, we had to go back in time. And really, I had to remember very clearly where some of those milestones were not completed. And we had to go back in with OT and physical therapy to build the muscle memory, to build the occupational memory, which is literally building the cross-body connections for her, so that she could then start to do these other higher level learnings. And it wasn't until, so the message I want to give you is, if you are a parent of a 5 or 6-year-old child, and your child is trying to learn math facts in kindergarten or first grade, or they're having a hard time writing, I want you to not question their intelligence. I want you to go back in time and ask yourself, did my child skip or speed through milestones? Because if they did, that's where it has nothing to do with intelligence. It has everything to do with the cross-body connections that did not get completed.
Yeah, those are just not quite strong enough. So I'm glad that you brought in those reading and writing, because that's more tangible later on in life, and how important these milestones are.
Yes. And again, you guys, look at all the ways that pediatric chiropractic can be a benefit to you, your child, and your family in the first years of life. And honestly, if you're a parent, if I think about 0 to 5 years, inevitably, of all the things we've listed, absolutely, you're probably going to experience at least 3 of those, at least. It's inevitable. Yeah. So the reason why I wanted Dr. Elise to come on today is because I think people have this misperception that they don't need pediatric chiropractic relationship, or that that it doesn't seem safe, or it doesn't seem like it could be beneficial. But what I want to emphasize very strongly is that you will, just like when you have a baby, you want to develop a relationship with a lactation consultant, you want to develop a relationship with your OBGYN, you probably want to develop a relationship with a pediatric chiropractic, right? And
Yeah.
your pediatrician. Like, to me, in the first 6 months of life, those are like the 4 relationships you should definitely have. And then we're going to add sleep coach.
Yes.
After child is after age 6 months, inevitably you're going to come under some type of sleep disruption, and it sure is nice to come to have, you know, kind of top of the mind person you like to call to get accurate and reliable information.
Yeah.
And then later in life, you know, there's tutors and things like that, but you don't have to do it alone. That's basically what I want to say here. Like, parenting is hard. You don't have to do it alone and figure it all out. There are people with areas of expertise, and Dr. Elise Hamilton is one of them.
Oh, thank you.
So.
Yeah, that is absolutely correct. And we as parents forget that how much changes in those early years. And I think it's your brain is pretty much all, most of the development is already done by 3 years. So those first 3 years are really, really important to get all of this down and have that resources to help you.
Yes, absolutely. Well, thank you, Dr. Hamilton. Can you tell everybody, like, how to reach you if they're in the Bay Area? And if they aren't in the Bay Area, what are some resources and ways that they can get support if they are already bumping up across some of these problems and they realize they want the care? Oh, you guys, you know what? I'm going to speak for her because we got spinning ball here, and it might be because her phone might be dying. So what I will do is I will put in the notes how to reach her, but she's Hamilton Chiropractics, and she's in San Mateo, California. So anyone in the Bay Area can catch her there. But I also want to tell you, and I'm pulling it up on my computer right now, there is a kind of like, if you are somewhere else in the country and you're like, I really want to get a pediatric chiropractor, there's a website called ICAPA, the letter 4, KIDS.com. And I believe it stands for the International Chiropractic Pediatric Association, the letter 4, kids, KIDS.com. And you can go there and put in your zip code, and that will allow you to find someone and interview someone. So please, if you love this conversation today, I would love it if you could forward it to some of your friends. Oh, here she's coming back. Let's see. Maybe we didn't lose her. Here she comes. Let's see. I know she was low on battery.
I'm so sorry.
Maybe she's coming. Oh, there she is. We thought maybe it was either spinning ball or low battery. So I just told them how to reach you. It's Hamilton Chiros, HamiltonChiros.com. And she's in Belmont, California. And then I also told them about the International Chiropractic Pediatric Association. Perfect. And how to reach out to them. And is there anything else you want to share with our audience today?
So we are in San Mateo. Yeah. And
San Mateo. Okay, she's in San Mateo.
Sorry. Also, okay. Hamilton Chiros. You can find us there. I'm happy to help you find a pediatric chiropractor in your area as well.
Yeah, and actually, you know what? Go ahead and follow Dr. Elise on Facebook or Instagram or wherever you kind of like to follow your your thought leaders. She does a lot of interviews and workshops and different things on her channel. And so it's a great way to just come and just kind of keep learning about babies during this really critical time of 0 to 5 years
Thank
of
you
age.
so much.
So
great.
All right.
Bye.
Thank you. Okay. Bye, you guys.